You probably think having no clients is a bad thing, right? But this is the disaster that most artists never see coming. And if you're not wise to it, it'll destroy your business and your passion for art. Welcome to Art Mentor. My name is Sean, and today I want to give you advice on what do you do when you start to get too many clients, when you start to have too much work, because most artists totally mishandle this, and because of that, they burn out and they fizzle and they never are heard from again. And you deserve better, so make sure you do this. Now, do you think that this is like some type of elite issue, something that you don't even have to worry about? Do you think that, oh, well, I'll worry about that when I'll get there, or like, ooh, 1% are problems? But listen, this is actually a hugely prevalent issue. And I first started to notice this around the time that COVID happened. And then I noticed it again around the time that AI happened. And then I would see artists on Instagram start to put up reels saying like, oh, I got like 200 commissions last year and now I only got 35 this year. And I think that this really exposes a much bigger problem than what they thought the problem was, which is just that they had terrible practices. Now, what most artists tend to do that I notice is extremely toxic is that they'll think that when they start to get a much higher volume of work come into them, is that they can somehow magically sustain their operating procedures as when they were much smaller and they had a much lower volume of work to do. And what that generally does is it makes you start to adopt and think that you need to adopt, more importantly, unsustainable practices. And this is going to mark the genesis of the death of yourself and your art passion and your art business. So no, just because you're not there yet doesn't mean you shouldn't be aware of it. And when I say what is too much work, that's gonna differ for everybody. Like myself personally, I can generally float pretty comfortably like 2 to 3 a month. But then I have months like January right now of 2024 where I entered from December having nothing new and just finishing up. And then January, boom, I have 5 projects altogether. And for some of you though, it might be your ability to juggle 10 or 20 or 15. And no matter what you deem as too much work, you need to know how to actually handle it so that you're gonna actually want to proceed forward and actually want to grow and not wanna give up. So here is my step-by-step system on things that you do need to do and that you do need to be aware of and you do need to implement regardless of where you are in your practices right now. For step 1, I want to give you some advice that I learned really early on, which was that I felt really terrible about working on anything at all as soon as I started to do it. And why? It was because I never got payment for it. There are so many artists, and it's really tragic to me. How many of y'all watching this will just start to labor over any project and you have absolutely no security on that? And this is a concept that I would like you to kind of wrap your mind around. And I just want to suggest this to you. Y'all that are in this boat where you're just doing free labor, I need you to know this. You're working for maybe money. And why do I say that? Because maybe the client will pay you, maybe they won't. Maybe they'll have the funds, maybe they won't. Maybe they'll pay you one time, maybe they won't. Maybe things will go your way, maybe things won't go their way. Because what's gonna happen here? What happens if your client all of a sudden gets a big auto bill that they have to repair? What happens if they get a big medical bill or a big home repair cost? Any number of things. What happens if someone gets sick? Who are they gonna cut? You. So the first step that you need to do when you start to get a higher volume of clients is you have to demand payment up front. Now, depending on where you are in your journey, you're gonna feel more or less comfortable with what I'm about to suggest, but it's gonna really revolutionize your life. And it's this: you need to make sure that you ask for 100% upfront. And that's not crazy to ask for, because you need security from random stranger, user number 123456 somewhere in the planet, right? You need to make sure that they're actually gonna pay you. Now, if you're uncomfortable with that, or here's another big thing too, what if you have recurring clients? What are your people that keep coming back to you and you wanna cut them some slack and a break? Well, listen, I'm all for that, y'all. There are some clients that I work with on a much higher price tag and we have structures, and that's fine too. Listen, I totally get that if people just don't have like $500 or $1,000 to drop at once. So for you, friend, though, what you do want to do is once you start to get a higher volume, you need that respect, you need that security, because the worst thing that you will ever feel is the insecurity come up of when you're working on a project and you don't know if you're going to get paid for it. And if you haven't been burned by this maybe money scenario, you're going to. Like, I guarantee it, you are going to. Doesn't matter how much of a good person you think that other person is or how dependable or reliable that they've been, because I can guarantee you this, it's gonna happen, it's gonna come for you. So to avoid that, you need to make sure that you take at least 50%, if not 100% upfront. And then that way, the whole time that you're working, the whole time that you're making that artwork, right? You can just breathe easy knowing that you have been compensated for it. But most artists don't do this. Is this you, by the way? Now here comes step 2, and here's what's gonna alleviate a lot of stress for you, because let me guess, as you're starting to take a lot of orders and you're starting to get a lot of clients that wanna work with you, right? Do you feel stressed out? Do you start to feel overwhelmed? Does this just start to just seem like it's just a crushing amount of weight for you to handle, right? Okay. Let's breathe easy here, and I want to give you with some clarity right now. What you need to do is you need to start to assemble a priority list. And here's what this is going to do. I need to let you know that your brain is the lousiest, crappiest organization system in the entire world. So the best thing that you need to do is get that out of your head, get that onto a piece of paper or some type of digital document where you can see it. And I want you to create a priority list of the clients. And I need you to prioritize it now in order of who paid. So even if you've been talking with somebody for 2 weeks, if they haven't paid you yet, they get bumped down. And here's another good thing too, especially if this all comes in a big rush, I want you to prioritize as the first 1 or 2 of those, or however many you have coming in. I want you to prioritize the people that pay 100% up front, all the way at the front. So even if they paid a day later than everybody else, boom, they're up front. And just let them know that. Like, hey, I really appreciate that. I'm gonna bump you up a little bit. By doing this, it's going to release your brain's stress and need for organization internally because it's external. And this will allow you to just let this be a very procedural process where you know your timelines and you know whose project you have to work on and when your due dates and deadlines are. Won't that be so much easier for you? Because I guarantee you should try this out. Now, if you really want to boost your productivity, one of the best things I could ever advise for you to do, friend, is to like and subscribe to this channel, y'all, because I'm all about supporting you in your artistic growth and journey in your business too. And if you appreciate that, this is going to be your home. So now that you've done that, let's move on. Now for step 3, I'm gonna let you know what the number 1 thing the clients need is. And you might think that they need great artwork, or you might think that they need the most stellar, absolute, gorgeous version of every single update that you're ever gonna give them. And no, friend, the number 1 priority that you should have all the time when you're working with clients is simply customer service and communication. Y'all, there are so many artists that do such a lousy job, such an outrageously unacceptable job at communication. So what I would like you to do now at step 3, once you start to get too many clients, is you have to communicate, now that you have that priority list we just did in the previous step, you have to communicate to those clients where they are on it, okay? So make sure that you let them know, hey, you're gonna be my 3rd slot, you're gonna be my 5th slot, you're gonna be my 2nd slot. Let them just know when that is going to be, and most importantly, when you intend to start working on it. Let them know when that's gonna happen. Let them know some type of a rough outline. Also, make sure that you follow up, like be good on your communication, y'all. Also, to make sure that you can actually follow up with them in a timely manner, one of the things I recommend is you should have that priority list in a very public spot so that you can see where it's gonna be. I've even heard from some people what they like to do is they like to have a widget on their desktop with just a running list of what they are and a little thumbnail preview of exactly what that project entails. That's a beautiful idea. Anything you can do to increase your productivity so that every single time you log onto your machine, boom, now you can see exactly what you're supposed to be doing, exactly what you're supposed to be working on. Can you put it as your desktop wallpaper? Can you put it on as a list, like a physical list, attached right to your monitor? Think about what you can do in order to release that friction of you having to think about it, because y'all, your brain sucks at having to think about the same thing over and over and over again. So let it all out, communicate it with your clients, and let them know. It gives you peace, it gives them peace too. And then you get to give them the art piece at the end. So much better, right? Now, if you really want to satisfy your clients, make sure you pay attention to step 4 here. I want you to think about this scenario. What would happen if you need to get your car repaired and you brought it in and they said, okay, it'll be ready in about 2 days, come back in about 2 days. And then near the end of day 2, you got a phone call and they said, hey, sorry, we said that this was gonna take a couple days, but it's gonna take a couple more. How would you react to that? You'd be pissed, wouldn't you? Rightfully so. Heck yeah, now you can't get around, now you gotta bum a ride, you gotta Uber, you gotta have mom drive you around or something, right? Now let's replay that scenario. What would happen if they said, oh, it's gonna be 4 days to fix your vehicle, and then at the end of day 2, they called you and said, hey, good news. We were able to bump it up in line, we got everything done early, and your vehicle's ready, come on and pick it up. How would you react to that? you would be ecstatic. You would feel so good about that. You'd be happier, right? Because you got what you wanted to earlier. So that brings me to this point for step 4. You have to overestimate and over deliver. So one of the biggest things that I think a lot of artists do very poorly is actually structure out and schedule when they're going to be working on any particular work or when they're going to be providing updates. So one of the things that I'd like you to start to do from this very moment going forward is this. Every single time that you think you know what day you're going to provide a client an update or the final finished work, whatever it is, just go ahead and just add 2 more days onto that, okay? Then that way, when you tell a client, hey, I'm going to have your final version ready for you on Sunday, and then, Friday comes around, I'm all set. There you go, baby. Look at this bad boy right here. They're going to be ecstatic. You will have superseded their expectations of that. And by doing that, that's going to make them want to come back to you. That's going to make you look like a professional. That's going to make them think, wow, that person, they're a beast. Look at how good that they did there. They said they were going to get to me on that date, but they got it to me on this date instead. Versus the reverse of this, when you have to, give that miserable message to that client of like, hey, sorry, I know I said I was gonna do it here, but I need a few more days. Like, instead of you having to grovel at them, it's gonna make them feel so much better, and it's gonna help keep you in line and give you grace too. Let's say that it actually does take you 2 additional days. Let's say, life happens to you for a change, and something comes up and you actually need that time. Well, you've got that built-in grace period, friend, and that's critical for you if you do want to balance a lot more work. See how that goes? Think you can start to do that? Now, just revisiting that priority list that we made, let's just say that it's not good enough for you to just operate on alone, which now, coming at step 5 here, here's what you need to do. I need you to go ahead and create an actual physical calendar of this thing. Again, this can be like digital and some type of an app, or it can be an actual physical calendar. Myself, I like physical things on a whiteboard or a glass board or just a pen and paper, right? Go ahead and get that out of your brain. And here's a really critical thing that most artists never do. You will most likely stack a ton of the same projects together with the same exact dates. Y'all, this is just foolish. Trust me, you don't want this, okay? Especially once you start to handle more clients than you're comfortably used to. This is gonna stress you out big time. So now in step 5, I want you to assemble that calendar like this. I want you to offset every single one of those projects so that your due dates or your update dates are never going to be the same. And on that, you should have a start and an end date, or a start and an update day, especially like if you're like me and you have like a full-time job and stuff too that you're juggling all these clients around. So definitely like put on when your updates are. Never have your updates, hear me now, never have your updates on the same exact day for multiple people, okay? What you want to do is always stagger it. Like for example, one of the things I like to do is I like to stagger when I start a project. So like for client 1, I'll tell them, hey, I'm going to start your project this week. Client 2, hey, I'm going to start your project next week. Client 3, I'm going to start your project the week after. Client 4, the week after that. By doing that, I don't have the mental stress of trying to start all of these at once, because that is the most stressful part, isn't it? I hate starting from nothing. So if you build it into your system and into your processes, and especially your artistic process, it's going to make you be more sustainable, and it's going to allow you to proceed forward and feel good and feel confident and feel energized about all your work, versus you're just getting slammed and slammed and slammed with project after project after project, and the stress of you having to send off like 3 updates on the same day. Y'all, that sucks. I'm speaking from personal experience on that one. So stagger it so that you have an easier time keeping up with that load. What do you think of that? Now, step 6 here. I know how you're gonna react to this one, so I'm just gonna warn you up front. This is probably gonna panic you, all right? But I'm gonna tell you, if you actually do this, it's gonna make your life so much better and so awesome. So y'all, if you're starting to handle a much bigger volume of clients and it's starting to feel overwhelming to you, one of the first things you need to start to do is increase your pricing by at least 50% right now. And I know a lot of you just fell backwards in their chair just hearing that, right? But here's the honest truth, is that once you start to feel like you are really heavily in demand, I'm not talking like, okay, well, you went from 1 client to 3 clients, but I'm talking like once you start to really like double up the amount of people that you're taking, this is going to be a necessary practice. And it's also one thing that I see most artists not do. I had one time somebody throw on my comment about like my artistry videos that they actually were being successful on the platform because they got 50 commissions in a month. I'm not impressed. I think that's stupid, Because why in the world are you handling that many clients and you're no doubt taking it for dirt cheap pricing? That's not smart. That's not admirable. That's you punishing yourself for your artwork. You being some type of an art slave is a really dumb and degrading thing for you to do to yourself. So, my friend, you need to increase your pricing, okay? Here's a general structure that I like to do. And if you reject this, let me just ask you this. Would you prefer to handle 20 clients at $100, or would you prefer to handle 10 clients at $200? What happened there? You got more money, you got more motivation, and most importantly, you got more focus. Now, if you feel guilty, if you're like an awesomely empathetic person that actually feels for another person, here's the one thing that I want to combat your knee-jerk reaction to. You're gonna say like, oh, I feel bad giving that price tag to somebody. I feel bad charging that much, right? But let me ask you this, y'all. Let's say that, for example, you had a child and you needed daycare for them. Let's say that one daycare was neat, clean, and pristine, and everything was in order. It was a little bit more. And the other one was like kind of ratty and everything was old and like the toys were kind of dingy. And in that one, it was a little cheaper. Which one would you want to send your child to? You'd obviously want to send it to the first option, right? Why? Because it provides a better service, and because you know that your child's going to be more taken care of, right? What if you thought of it that way? What if you think of the fact that you're charging more money is going to allow you to focus more on your clients, to communicate with them, and to take care of them better? You might think somehow that clients will get mad at you, that clients won't be okay with it, that some clients are going to leave you, and real talk, they will. But here's the thing. Most clients are actually going to be totally okay with this. Most clients that you're going to encounter, especially the ones that are repeats for you, they're going to want to continue to support you because they know at the end you can take care of them. Because in you charging more, when you start to get a higher volume of clients, is actually a way for you to take care of them better. And that has to start with you taking care of yourself. So start to increase your pricing right now and do it, and you'll never regret it, and it's gonna make you feel better, and it's gonna help you not burn out and give up. All right, y'all. So now you've got everything planned out, and you've got your clients figured out, and you got your pricing figured out. What are we gonna do now? Well, listen, here comes step 7, and it's the most critical one. You have to actually execute on it. You have to sit down and actually put stylus onto tablet, or you have to put pencil to paper or paint to canvas or whatever you're working with, and you need to actually be a professional and do this. Why does this seem like a no-brainer? Because there are way too many artists that as soon as they start to get a lot of clients, they don't do what I'm suggesting for you to do right here, and then they just slack off. Or here's another thing too. Have you ever done this and experience that volume of work, and then you just started to like lean back and start to kind of rest on your laurels, and you start to feel like you're all big boss in charge and everything like that, and that demotivates you a little bit? But here's why. It's just because you feel a little bit overwhelmed. Now listen, the only way you're ever going to get over that feeling of dread or overwhelm or exhaustion from working on this is this, y'all. You got to think about how your actions right now are going to contribute to the future that you want, and how those opportunities that have blissfully been blessed unto you, you need to think about how that's going to provide even richer opportunities for you in the future, where you're going to work with better clients, and you're going to have better projects, you're going to have more fun with it, and you're going to be able to grow and expand yourself and your life on there. But that has to start with you actually doing the work. And what do you need to do in order to do that? You're going to have to prioritize it. You're going to have to treat it like it's a job, even if you already have another job. Like me, I have another job, and I do a lot of other things too, and I treat all those clients the same, because you have to respect the investment. You have to respect that that person somewhere across the globe is trusting you with their income, with their livelihood, with their job, and you cannot disrespect them by just blowing it off or treating it like it's not a big deal, or because you feel like you're all big and everything now that you've got a whole mess of clients coming in. No, friend. You got to sit there and do the work, and it's going to make you into a more moral person, into a more ethical person, and into a better person, my friend. And I really, really strongly urge you to consider it like that too. Now, in your journey, you're going to have to prioritize it by means of, you're going to have to give up certain things. In doing something that's for your greater good, you're going to have to relinquish something that's not. You might have to give up some of your leisure activities. You might need to give up a little bit of sleep too every once in a while. You might need to make sure that you don't go out with your friends like one weekend a month, and instead you just sit your butt down and do your stuff. Because at the end of the day, if your friends or your family or whoever have an issue with that, they're not that supportive of you. But the ones that are the ones that are going to stick around. Now, I'm not saying that you can just do this ad nauseum or do this every single day, but you're going to have to sacrifice in order to get what you want, because you can either sacrifice the now and live hard later, or you can sacrifice now and live easier later. Choose your heart. Once you've gone ahead and you've delivered everything and those clients are happy and those clients are satisfied, you arrive at a really important impasse. And what am I talking about here? Is that through doing all this and through learning how to do this type of process and handle this much volume of clients, we come into step 8. Which is that now you need to develop new standards for yourself. Because in handling all of this and in you actually surviving all of this too, I mean, just real talk, it is going to be a little thing at the beginning, but then it's going to feel natural to you once you start to adapt to everything that we've been talking about today. Then you're going to have to sit there and consider, what do I need to do going forward? How do I do this more long-term, and how do I do this more sustainably? And the key thing that's going to allow you to do that is, first off, you have to reflect. You have to look back at yourself and consider, how did you handle things along the way? How did you qualify your client? How did you come up with your pricing? How did you feel going through that? Nobody freaking talks about this, but it's so necessary for you to consider, how do you feel at every step of the way? And listen, I'm not saying like, oh, I feel so tired. Like, of course you're going to feel tired, y'all. Art is an exhausting activity, real talk. I'm talking about, how do you feel respect-wise throughout this entire process? Was that client kind of rude to you, kind of a jerk? Were they pushy? Did they oversee too much of this? How do you want to avoid that? How would you tackle that? Or how would you handle that better in the future? So if you are plowing through all this work and the whole time in the back of your mind, here's your red flag here, y'all. You want to think about this. Do you ever say this phrase to yourself, I'm not getting paid enough to do all of this work? If that is your dialogue inside of you, then you need to make sure that you take action on it and you think about how you want to reflect on it so that you're actually going to level up your standards so that everything you're going to do is going to match what future you is going to do. Because if you have, and I assume you do, don't you have a vision in the future of what you want to be someday? Here's the thing, you have to start to grow to that now. Don't wait a year, don't wait 6 months, don't wait even for next month. Start to evolve it right now. If you do that, you're going to feel great about what you're doing and you're actually going to succeed because you're going to start to implement what future you would do right now. Now, for the final step, you really need to think about how you're managing your time, what you are doing versus you aren't doing, and how do you actually fit all these priorities into your life and to do it sustainably. And well, y'all, I made an entire video about it right here. It's going to teach you my system for how I get stuff done at a really efficient level. So go check that out. See you next time.